What's up, guys? Azim Rakes here, bringing you today's episode not really an episode. This is the first time we're ever doing this. We're doing an NBA Finals Game 1 preview. We'll have a preview for every single game. Um, we're going to have a fourth member join us shortly at Source Podcast. However, they're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so hopefully they'll be back on it soon enough. But today, for this first game, for the NBA Finals, we have Bernsey Bets, myself, and we will get Source Podcast in a little bit. Um, let's just start it off with a simple question: Who had the Suns and the Bucks, or either one of them? Bernsey, you said you had both, so
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how did you pull the Suns and the Bucks out of the air before the finals or before the playoffs even started? How did you get them to the
Okay.
finals? Why did
So
you
it
think
was
they'd get there?
so it wasn't a direct matchup. I kind of picked like a choice or two from each. I thought it was going to be Jazz versus Suns in the Western Conference Finals. I thought they were just the best teams overall.
Right.
The Jazz collapsed, but I was happy to see the Suns still make it because I just really enjoyed watching them the whole year. I thought they had a complete team. And I knew that as long as they got through the Lakers, they were probably gonna get to the finals.
Right.
Now on the Eastern side, it was just kind of heavy bias against the Nets. But just watching the Bucks over the past couple seasons, I thought the additions of Jrue Holiday and PJ Tucker, especially PJ Tucker, dude's an absolute wall. I think he adds so much to the team that nobody really talks about. And I was like, I'm not me myself. I wasn't going to put money on the Bucks because obviously you had to go through the Nets. But I thought there was a very small possibility that the Bucks could get through the Nets and then steamroll whoever was in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
I personally thought whoever won that semifinals matchup was going to win the NBA championship, and I'm probably going to be sticking with that. I think the Bucks are probably going to get it in 7.
Dot, who did you have in the finals, and did you ever see Suns or Bucks getting here?
Hell no. I probably had the Bucks better than the Suns. I mean, I probably wrote the Suns off. I probably favored the Lakers and the Clippers over them, but I'd always had the Nets or the Sixers from the East, kind of trying to represent. But you kind of always had the Bucks kind of in the back of your mind, thinking that they could make a run. And I do think that PJ Tucker signing in the middle of the season made a humongous difference down the stretch for them.
Yep.
Because he brought that toughness that this team was
Lacking.
was lacking for sure.
Yeah.
And Jrue Holiday, I think he's played phenomenal for him.
Amazing. And he just locked in a 4-year contract too.
Yeah, he's that guy. He's that guy that takes the heat off of Middleton and Giannis, and I think that can continue this series. I don't know if it happens this game, but I think Holiday matches up with Chris Paul significantly better than he did Trae Young. Trae Young was just blowing by him, and that pick and roll kind of had little issues with that. I still think that series with the Hawks is going to help them a lot with a pick and roll this series with Paul and Ayton. So they kind of know what to do. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think the Bucks defensively match up. And the one thing that I'm going to look for with the Bucks offensively is how the Clippers were exposing Booker on the defensive end, and they're going to expose him again. I don't know if it's going to be Middleton or if they're going to go Holiday or who they're going to go with, but they're going to try to get them in the post and let him go to work on one side and go to work and expose Booker. So that's going to be an interesting match.
That's going to be interesting, yeah. Source, who did you have in the finals, and did you ever see the Suns or the Bucks getting here?
Well, our preseason totals for futures, we had the Suns plus 3,300
Right.
to win the whole thing, plus 1,700
you're
to win the
right
West.
now, huh?
Oh yeah, and plus 1,700 to win the West cash the other day.
Nice.
Feeling great. And then our Eastern Conference bet was Philadelphia, so that did not work out the way that we hoped. But this is the matchup we're hoping for out of the East for the Suns as soon as Brooklyn was eliminated. So we've since hedged out of that, and we'll be taking home a cool 10 units at minimum. If the Bucks win, and close to about 300 units if the Suns win. So
Okay. All right.
Damn.
you're talking to somebody who I'm hoping that we'll be paying
The
our rent on the
Suns.
Phoenix Suns dime here momentarily.
Okay.
I think that's
all right,
I think
let's
that's a
do
little
that.
more than rent.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna say things are running pretty well right now for us. So this is gonna be a stressful series, even though we're taking home profit either way. Because
Right.
obviously there's a lot more on one
That's a
side
big-
than the other.
Yeah.
But the edges that I like in this game, this game one especially, is I like the Bucks, and I like the under. The
Ooh.
under specifically because the Suns have been sitting on their hands for a couple of days, and will probably take a quarter or two to get going. And then on the
That's
other
fair, that's
side, I think that the Bucks generally are lackadaisical on offense when they don't attack the paint. I'm assuming Giannis is still not going to play in
Big
this,
question.
but when they don't, he's questionable, and I think that's more gamesmanship on the part of Coach Bud than it is in actuality a threat for him to play.
That's what I've been seeing.
Yeah, so I think they're lackadaisical in attacking the paint early at the best of times, and now the matchup with Ayton, if you don't have Giannis, there's no one that can really hurt Ayton in the paint. I don't think
Right,
Lopez
right.
has that ability. What they can do is stretch the floor with Brook Lopez in a way that Ayton is not going to be able to match up on. So I'm interested to see what that matchup looks like, but I like the under.
Okay. For me, myself, I personally didn't see the Suns or the Bucks making it to the finals for a couple of reasons. I obviously thought the Suns had a very interesting road to the finals, given that they had to play the Lakers in the first round. I didn't think that they were going to beat them, but of course they proved us wrong there. And then also the West, you look at all these teams filled with superstars, right? Regardless of who they'd have to play. I definitely thought the Suns had a good opportunity after they beat the Lakers to get to the conference finals. But even then, I didn't give them the credit I think that they deserve now to believe that they were going to get to the finals. I the whole time thought that there was going to be other teams or other players that are going to, or at least in the conference finals, other teams with players like Kawhi Leonard, Josic, whoever the case may be, that would prove to be very tough on the Suns. But
Yep.
On the East side, I definitely didn't have the Bucks, and for one and one purpose only, which I think that they've sort of, they've worked a little bit of that issue out with Drew Holiday and with PJ Tucker. But for me, the simple reason was that they just didn't fit their role players in the previous seasons. What I've always said in the playoffs is that in any playoffs, in any sport playoffs, every team's going to have your superstar caliber guys. Every team's going to be able to handle that. The difference is going to be how do you get your role players to assimilate, how confident your role players can be during on the biggest stage. If you've given them enough leeway in the regular season, then they're going to be a little bit more confident in the postseason, et cetera, and how much can you get them to carry a little bit of the burden. And I don't think the Bucks have ever been able to do that well till this season, which, as we've seen clearly, Drew and PJ have stepped up in amazing ways to provide a little bit of that, to mitigate a little bit of the stress on Middleton and Giannis. And so I think the thing that we'll need to be looking at in the series is how Drew Holiday, how PJ Tucker, and even Ayton, right? Because really the main guys on the Suns are going to be Booker and Chris Paul, but even how people like Ayton and Jay Crowder fit in, and how much of the stress that they're able to pull off and mitigate. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to see, and I think that's really going to decide who wins this finals.
Azim, I have a question for you.
What's up?
And this is actually for everybody on the call here. So I just placed about 2 hours ago DeAndre Ayton plus 2,200 to be the MVP of the finals here. And I just wondered, do you guys think that that's a possibility if he's not going up against Giannis? Because my thinking is,
No.
if he's matching up with Giannis, then he'll, and he plays well defensively, then the focus is on that. And if Giannis doesn't play, then it's Chris Paul, right? And we know how well these things go.
I think if the Suns win, it's Chris Paul. no matter
It's
what.
going to be Chris Paul. There's media bias,
Which is a
and
media bias only.
there's media bias, and he's going to have 10 assists every game and probably over 20 every game, depending on who's guarding him. He's just going to be running that team.
Right.
The only,
I
only
do
way.
think Aiden's going to be integral, though. It's
Oh,
not as if he's not.
I mean, absolutely huge, yeah. But I do think, though, even though Aiden's going to be a massive piece, I just don't see a way that he wins Finals MVP.
Finals MVP.
I really don't see it.
I mean, I think Aiden can pull it out. Again, like going back to what Dot said, I think it was Dot who said it. The Bucks playing against the Hawks allowed them to kind of get us help them get introduced to the pick and roll scheme, and that's going to help sort of stop or slow down Devin Booker, Chris Paul, et cetera, et cetera. But it's going to allow Ayton, and if it's against Giannis, if Ayton plays a great defensive set, I think Ayton potentially, I think that plus 2,200 is definitely devaluing him a ton from this finals appearance. I think he's much more likely to win the finals MVP than people are realizing. But I do agree with the media bias of being Chris Paul's first MVP, him going from, just to a young team and carrying them to the finals. I know that doesn't really have too much of an effect on the finals MVP decision, but I feel like it's still going to make a play into it. And I think the NBA is going to get awarded to, if the Suns win, I think it's going to be awarded to Chris Paul.
Yeah.
I don't think there's another way this goes, but I do think the 2,200 is great value on DeAndre Ayton.
Now, do you think if DeAndre averaged 20 points, let's say 12 rebounds on like 65% shooting, that he would even get it? Because even then, I still feel like Chris Paul and Devin Booker are going to be the two that get it.
No, Devin Booker would be out
So
of the
the way
question
that-
at that point. It would be Chris Paul or Ayton, in my opinion.
The way that I look at it, Bernsey, is that's the stat line that he's going to have in this series if he's going to win it. But I think he's definitely capable of doing that.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind that he can have 20 points in a game. He can absolutely take over a game against Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is a bruiser, no doubt, but Brook Lopez doesn't have the foot speed that DeAndre Ayton has.
Not anymore.
He doesn't even have the size, and if he's not in the game, then PJ Tucker is going to be the one who has to pick up DeAndre Ayton when Giannis is not on the floor, and nor is Brook Lopez, and that's a mismatch that Phoenix will look to exploit every single time. Chris Paul pick and roll to DeAndre Ayton is going to be lethal here.
Right. I entirely agree with that, and I think Ayton's going to be. That's what I'm saying. The 2,200, I do think because of media bias, and we've seen this happen in the NBA one few too many times where it's been the media winner. That's why I think Chris Paul is going to be the Finals MVP. But if the Suns win, obviously, but I do think that plus 2,200, it's severely. There's a ton of value there for Ayton to potentially win that Finals MVP.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I'm actually seeing plus 2,500.
You see, I
would
definitely worth it.
Just based on the odds, I threw a 1 unit on it to have something else to root for, aside from the Phoenix Suns, and the value just jumped out to me. Chris Paul at plus 170, I feel like that's a good value for him because he's the most likely person to win it. But I'm not going to throw MVP odds on a plus 170. I think those are the kind of odds that Vegas really wants you to bet on. That's where they make their money.
I saw.
I think you'd be better off just playing Chris Paul props every game rather than try to take that plus 170. You have much more of a likelihood to grow your money. If you put 1 unit on it, how much do you walk away with? 170% return on investment. I'm pretty sure you can get that. Or not. Maybe you can't get the return on investment, but you can get the 1.7 units simply by playing player props for Chris Paul. I mean, if he's going to win MVP, he's going to kill it. So might as well play the player props instead. But yeah, no, I like the value on Ayton.
Well, I'm convinced. I'm putting. Let's see. I'll put a unit on it.
Let's get into the breadth of the show. Let's start off with the money line and spread. We can do both of them together because sometimes they overlap. So money line and spread. Suns -6 is a spread right now. I don't know what the money line odds are, but let's just, instead of looking at money line odds, let's just look at who do you think is going to win, and then do you think they'll cover? So Bernsey, who do you think wins, and do you think they'll cover?
I really do think. I mean, I do think the Bucks are going to win the series, but I just have a feeling that the Suns are going to come out, get the win. I have no opinion on the spread. I have no opinion on the total tonight. I'm just going to most likely just enjoy the game. But I think I would, if anything, I would lean under. I might still think about putting a unit on the under for this game.
Mhm.
I was very big at the beginning of the season on playing overs when Giannis is not playing. I think the last 2 seasons it was hitting at like a 75% rate or something. I could check in a minute. It was on the sports database.
Yeah, we can come back to the total.
Yeah, let me get the stats on that.
Yeah,
I'll come back in a
to the
minute.
total. Dot, who do you have winning, and do you think they'll cover?
I got the Suns tonight.
You got the Suns.
Yeah, since 02-03, NBA Finals Game 1, home teams have been 16-2 straight up, and then 15-3 against the spread. And then to take it a step further, with the 2 days rest or more, they are 13-0 straight up and 13-0 against the spread. So that rest advantage is certainly going to help the Suns tonight. I think they are the deeper team, the better team. So I think that is where I think the advantage is definitely on that second unit where I think the Bucks, especially if Giannis doesn't play tonight, they're gonna ride like 6 or 7 guys after already a grueling series against the Hawks. So I think the advantage tonight is with the Suns.
Okay, real quick question though: if Giannis is playing, where do you have this line? Because I still have it at -3, -4 maybe.
That's
that
right.
being said, the fact that it's opened at -6 and stayed at -6, I think that it's happened often in the past where Vegas essentially indicates that a player's not playing, and I don't think Giannis will play this game because if I have Giannis playing in this game, that line is -3, -4.
If Giannis was playing, that line would have already moved. That's how I look at it.
I think he's not playing.
Yeah, they would have leaked somewhere, 100%.
Yeah, I never thought he was playing to begin with, based on what's come out about his knee injury in the last couple of days. I think we probably don't see him until Game 3. Honestly,
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
But I think they'll continue to play this. He's close to returning. We might even see him, in warm-ups on the court for Game 2. I wouldn't doubt that. But
he's on the court right now. He was taking shots and everything. So yeah.
There you go. So I'm not even watching. I just don't think he'll play meaningful minutes until Game 3, and that's how I'm going to cap, the next couple of days. Obviously, Sam is the NBA model for us, and he'll be on the next couple of shows here to break down exactly what our models predict. But for me, I like the +6 for the Bucks here. A little bit. I'm not obviously not going to play. We're not going to play anything because we're cashing a ticket either way, based on the series. So we won't have any individual game bets except maybe some team totals. I like a lot of props tonight. I think there's a lot of props tonight that are very undervalued. I think DeAndre Ayton rebounds over 12 is -120. I love that.
If Giannis isn't playing.
I think if Giannis isn't playing,
amazing.
and if Giannis isn't playing, I project him at 15, maybe 16 rebounds for this game. So I love that one. The other prop that I like is Drew Holiday assists over 7. I think that's a good bet. If Giannis isn't playing, Drew Holiday is going to be the ball handler, bringing the ball up the floor for the majority. So I like that one as well.
Right. For me, I think the Suns win and cover this game. Going back to what Dot said, it does matter. The second, and as I said earlier, it really depends on the role players. The second unit and the role players in this game are going to be the deciding factor for me. And especially since I expect Giannis to be out, how much more stress is there for Middleton, Drew Holiday, PJ Tucker, and how can they sort of mitigate, or not mitigate it, but how can they sort of let other people take over? We haven't really seen anybody else on the team pretty much be somebody of note. That being said, I think Middleton, Tucker, Drew, Brooke Lopez, they're all just going to get famished. They're all going to be overwhelmed. And I think the second unit and the fact that the Phoenix Suns role players are much better adept on this situation in this area, I think they're just going to be able to be a little bit more comfortable and not really feel the stress of playing on the big stage. I think for them this is going to be something of just another game, and for that fact, I think the Suns are just going to play more confidently, convert more points, and as a result, they're going to play more intelligently, find the open looks, find the open cuts. As a result, I do think the Suns are going to win this, and I think they're going to win by at least -6. I think it was Dot who told me earlier that only 2 of the 10 or 12 games this season for them, or 2 of their 12 wins this season, or whatever, this season they won by less than 6. So the other 10 games they won by 6 or more. Right now the line's also dropped to -5.5, and I like that. And I'm going to pull in a comment right now. Playoff trends. Away dogs coming off of back-to-back against the spread wins are 25% straight up and 39% against the spread in their next game, which would say to play the Suns. If I am correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's look at this. Home favorites in the first game of playoff series who are favored by -5 or more, 60%, 61 against the spread, and 72% on the under/over. Is that 72% on the under or the over? I can probably look that up myself. Over the last 5 to 6 years. So that being said, I don't know about the total because that was from Situational Sports. If he puts out his @ on the comments, I'll go ahead and plug his @. But yeah, I mean he's a guy who also looks at trends and looks at Vegas money and things of that nature, and so he knows what he's talking about just as much as we do. And the fact is, the Suns in this second unit with their role players, I think are going to be a phenomenal threat in this first game. That being said, let's move on to the total. So I know Bernsey, the total is sitting at 219.5. I know Bernsey had something on the total. Bernsey, you still there?
Yeah.
What do you got on the total?
Yeah, so at 3:00 today, it was at 216.5, but that was also when Giannis was ruled as doubtful. Right. So it may have moved up 3 points just when he moved the questionable. I'm not sure. I didn't see when it happened.
Right.
Now, a play I did at the early parts of 2021 was hitting the over for the Bucks games where Giannis was not playing. It started out at about a rate, I think I want to say 4-2, 5-2-ish. But at the end of the season, it did kind of spiral down in the month of April. When he didn't play, it actually went 1-4 on the over, which pretty much evened it out for the season. But these last three appearances, 2 against the Hawks and 1 near the end of the season against the Bulls, all 3 have went over by an average of 12 points, it looks like.
Yeah, I sort of lean the over here too, simply because if going back to just the role player situation, I do expect the Bucks to get blown out here. I entirely do. Not going to even act like I don't. The thing is, what happens when they do get blown out? If they do get blown out, we've seen time and time again that when teams are getting blown out or they're blowing somebody else out, they end up just kind of being a little bit more lackluster on the defense. And for that purpose, I think the Bucks, although playing terribly in this game, will be able to find a couple of open looks late in the game, and I think that'll be enough to push it over. I'm not playing it. I'm not playing either one of my plays. I'm not playing Suns -6 or the over, if I'm being honest. I don't have any trends on them. I'm very disciplined in the fact that I only take my trend plays. That being said, I'm not taking either, but I lean the -6 and I lean the over because, again, I expect a blowout. If there's something that's going to happen, I think it's going to be the last few minutes where a few extra points are going to be put up by the Bucks because the Suns just don't simply care to stop them from scoring because they're already going to be out in a big lead. That's how I see this game going. So I lean the Suns -6 and the over.
Real quick, while I have the stats pulled up, what I find interesting is most of these totals, especially since April when he started missing games because he was out for a little bit there.
Right.
A lot of those games, they've only, besides against the Timberwolves and the tanking Magic, they did not score over 120 points in any of those games.
Right.
Especially like and most of them are against pretty bad defensive teams. The Bulls, Magic, Timberwolves, Mavericks were a little better this year. Warriors. Now, I actually might be throwing a unit on the under here because I think the Suns are one of the best teams in the league defensively. Slower pace, high intensity. We've seen the under hit so many times throughout the playoffs already. And I think now that I'm actually digging into this a little bit, I think the under makes too much sense.
Yep.
Especially with the 3-point rise and it's sitting at 219.5 right now.
Right.
I personally just don't think the Bucks are going to be able to shoot very well tonight.
Perimeter defense is great.
As well.
Yep. And so two things. I don't think the Bucks are going to shoot very well, and the blowout factor. So you put those two together, it could be, a 10 to 15 point game with, 3 or 4 to go, and they throw their, and I guess that's your point too. They throw the subs in, and then they just kind of go wild and see
Right.
But
it's a question of, can the Bucks sub score?
Yeah, if they're hitting shots early, I'd probably take a live over for sure.
Right. But for the time being, this total is just really not a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been very indicative throughout all of our messages, is that this total is one that needs to be stayed away from because it could go over, it could go under. Really, the look is on the money lines or on the spread itself. Which I think, Bernsey, you said you had the Bucks.
I'm definitely not. No, I'm not betting any spreads on this game. No opinion.
Oh, not
that.
even betting.
I did.
Lean either one? Do you lean either one?
Yeah, I did say I think the Suns will probably win this game, but I honestly do think it could be kept a little bit closer, especially in a lower scoring game. The underdog spread has a higher probability of hitting. Right.
Well, yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. I think the most important things to watch in this game is the adjustment factors. How do both teams respond? How do the coaching staffs respond? How do the players respond? Because I think that's going to be very indicative of, the future games going forward in this playoff series, in this final series. Simply because if we see that teams aren't going to be able to adjust in the first game, there's no reason to continue to believe they're going to be able to adjust in any other game. And if you find that strong little edge, then you have it. So I think the biggest thing to look at in this game, and it might not, clearly I don't think any of us are betting it, which is the funny part, and we're probably being smart for it because you really don't know what's going to happen. Every playoff series this year has been kind of surprising in its own manner. Yep, it really has been. And so this is going to be, I don't think, any different. So I think it's just wise to watch the first game, look for areas where the team needs to make adjustments, and then see if they are actually making the adjustments. For example, if the Suns need to pull off the pick and roll because the Bucks somehow are finding a way to stop it, well, can the Suns do anything else but a pick and roll? And if they can't, then the Bucks are going to continue to stop it throughout the series. Let me just tell you that right now. So they look for areas where you think that adjustments need to be made, and then see if the teams are actually making the adjustments. That's my advice to anybody watching, to anybody looking for bets in the future for the playoff series. I don't think this is a game that is a bet-worthy game, but it is a game that will be very indicative of the future games.
And of course, as you say that, I'm actually locking in the under 108 first half right now. I just think their play styles I do think the defensive intensity of the playoffs and I believe what's going to happen with their play styles with Giannis out. Right. I do think it's going to hit, especially just looking at all the little stats that I was just pointing out a couple minutes ago. So I actually just locked that in.
Right, and like Source said, the Suns have been sitting on their hands for a couple of days now, so they might come out a little slow too. And expecting the Suns to be a blowout winner, I don't think it's going to happen until the third or fourth quarter. So I do like that first half under, but again, I'd rather just sit back and watch. But good luck to you on that under.
If I remember correctly, last year, of course, the Lakers and Heat were massive, very, very elite defensive teams. Right. I think their over only went over maybe twice, and I think one of the times it barely hit. I think it was buzzer beater.
Right.
Because looking at their scores right now, they were pretty much all around 210 or lower. Right. Besides one of the games where it went 219, the other one was 240.
Okay.
But the first game especially, very, very defensive minded. They barely scored 205.
All right. I think first games are very exploitative. Like you're just trying to find the exploitations in the other
Yeah.
team, and then you respond afterwards. Um, so maybe that's what they're going to try to do today. And in that sense, then the under is a great look. My again concern is if with Giannis out not out there, what are they going to really try to exploit? I mean, you literally don't have your plan A game plan. You know, you're going with a whole different game plan if you're the Bucks. So what are the Suns going to sit there and exploit? I think the Suns are just going to come out and just play
Uh,
a game
yeah, I
and
think
not
they're
really
just going to
care.
come out, play how they have been all year, and the Sun.
Potentially hit the over, so we don't know.
Yeah, especially in the playoffs, though. Both teams have been playing. I feel like the Bucks have been playing a lot better in games where it's lower scoring.
Right.
Am I correct on that?
What happened? Sorry.
When is it me or do the Bucks play a much better, at least this postseason, when they're in lower scoring games so far? Because I know
Yeah.
they were shutting down the Heat. The games where they beat the Nets, I think literally like the teams
Right.
were barely scoring 90, barely even 100. Some of those Hawks they held under 100 several times.
Yep.
Right.
They
No,
got a good defense, man. Good defense.
I do agree with that. Whenever the games are lower scoring, I think the Bucks just get to finally I feel like they've been such a fast break sort of as team for the last few seasons that other teams have been able to sort of adjust to that, sort of find the um,
Yeah,
find faults in that and be able to expose it. And now that they're slowing down, they're really using every one of their pieces and not just asking Giannis to go court to court, end to end. I think it's just been better for them, right? They're getting other pieces involved. They're getting PJ Tucker involved. They're getting Brook Lopez involved. Drew Holiday involved. Chris Middleton has had more of a role in this playoff series for them, or in this playoff run for them. It's because they've slowed down, and I think that's what they needed to do last year too. And if they did, we would have probably seen
yep.
a Lakers Bucks finals. But yeah, they just need to slow down, and if they keep it slow, there might be enough room for them to beat the Suns. But at the same time, without Giannis not being there, maybe today or the next game, I don't see the Suns losing this series at
I
all.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I like them a lot. Let's
Yeah.
go Suns.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for him, and
I'm not
especially because
saying
of Joe
Suns
too.
before, but I'm
Hey,
thinking they're going to
if Joe and Sam cash, if Source Podcast cashes that futures, I'm calling them up, telling them to fly me out,
right.
going right next to their home, hanging out with them, get a little while,
Yeah.
celebrate the win, all of it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things to look at in this game. I think I'm just excited for this series, right? Because I mean, in the past we've seen series where it's like, okay, we have the best player in the league in the series, and we just try to look at what they can do, right? With LeBron, with Steph, Kawhi, KD. We're just really kind of focused on the player. I think this series in a really long time is going to be a true team series where the teams are more important than what any individual player, and that's that as an NBA fan, that's what I'm excited for. That's
Well,
what
I feel
I'm
like,
really happy to look at.
and it's great because I feel like this is the first finals, at least at minimum, in several years where there's no clear favorite going in.
True, because I mean,
Even the Raptors, Warriors, the Warriors were insanely favored going in.
but that was a fun one because the Raptors won.
Oh, I mean,
It
yeah.
was a super fun one.
Still like insanely favored, but it's nice to finally be out of that. I said it before the season. I still think the Lakers and Nets. It's still going to be Lakers Nets before the season even started, but I feel like the power of the league kind of spread out and it was more distributed with two guys on every team.
I like it so much more now, and I'm really excited for it. So we're going to be tuning in and watching. Y'all have any last remarks? Any last comments? Anything of the sorts?
Go Suns. I think that. Yeah, I think they're.
Go Aiden.
Go Aiden. Yeah, go Aiden. Let's go Aiden.
I hope the Bucks have some heavy legs. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this preview was interesting enough. I know we didn't give out any official plays or anything of the sort. That will change for the future. In the future games, we'll of course have official plays, but given that this is game one, we need to really kind of look at it, address every little aspect of it before we're actually deciding to put our money where our mouth is. We pretty much chose to stay away. But we gave out a couple futures that y'all may have liked. That being said, again, thank you for the support. Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate the love and support you show us. And good luck on any of your bets that you may have today. Once again, thank you.